Hi. So I am here today with Allan Whitehead of The Shepherd. Thank you so much for joining us today, Allan.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm really excited to talk to you today. This was a very powerful film, and I loved this battle between preserving culture and the past versus finding agency and acceptance of the future. It was just very relatable piece, and I think it's interesting because viewers can find themselves on that spectrum somewhere from trying to hold on to what they deem to be important values versus the younger generation trying to pave their own path. And what was brilliant about this film for me is I could truly empathize with both sides. And then at the end, we find that gorgeous meeting in the middle. So
Yeah.
brilliant performance by you. Lots of tension to sink your teeth into, and you certainly did. So just to start, I'd love to hear more about you, Allan, and about your acting background.
Sure. Well, I actually came to acting most recently, obviously much later in life. I'm no spring chicken, but I did some acting in college and then life kind of took over and I raised a family. I was a single dad for a while and I raised a family. I have had a career in the law. I'm a lawyer.
Nice.
And then I guess about 8, 9 years ago, I engaged in some acting training in Orlando at a place called Truthful Acting Studios, which is a Meisner, if you're familiar with
Yes. Yeah.
Meisner training program. And I studied there for 2 years and then started acting in theaters in Orlando. And and then through that process got connected with student filmmakers, at least in part, and certain Arie, the director and writer of this film, who I auditioned for and ended up getting the role.
Nice.
So
And I can't imagine anybody else in the role. You
that's
really
nice.
embodied this character of Solomon. I could feel how firm you were in the convictions that felt so authentic. And then that heartbreak of this transgression was really palpable. So you mentioned
Yeah,
you've had a career in law. Did
yeah.
that somehow tie into your character? Was that a way in for you, how firm he is in these convictions?
It did, I think. You obviously and I do trial work as a lawyer, so
Mm,
you have to convey to a jury or to a judge that you're very committed and believe in the case that you are presenting.
yeah.
And I think that that did have an impact and
Yeah.
does help.
So how else did you tap into this character? Is he somebody that maybe you've encountered growing up? Are there parts of you that you found in him?
I would say not so much parts of me.
Mm,
Certainly the love at the end. I was a single father who was raised by a very Solomon type
mm,
firm father, and I committed to myself as a father who I loved and who was wonderful for me, and I value the lessons learned from my father. But I promised myself when I became a parent that I was going to make sure my children knew that it was all about love. And so the end, certainly, I tapped into as Solomon finds the finds the love at the end, and that love is more important than tradition.
yeah.
And certainly that comes from, or at least in part from my life experiences.
That's
And then the other, made what made my job easy was the relationship that I had with the other actors
good.
in the film who were just wonderful. And to be able to work off those other actors just really helped. Danny, my son, and Como, my daughter-in-law, and my brother Michael.
Yeah, I really felt that authentic chemistry, that family
Mhm.
history, which doesn't always happen. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that came through in your experience as well. Now, It's so important not to judge our characters when we first dive into them. So, is there something in your life that you're steadfast in devotion to that maybe helped you align with your character?
Um, Probably yes. I would say that, that there probably was, but it was really more of a discovery for me as an actor, in my process, a discovery of why it was so important
Mm,
to Solomon that made me, that allowed me to tap into the commitment that he had. And you know, at least in my experience as an actor, I love every character I play, and they're always right. And and they have a reason to fight and fight hard, so that, but I'm sure that life experience, it also assisted in that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you find any scene in particular was more difficult than others for you?
Yeah. The opening scene, which was I think it was the second scene we shot. I think the first scene we shot was me kind of wallowing on the floor, some of which made the movie.
Just an
Um,
easy part to hop into on your first
yeah,
day, right?
right.
Of course.
But the second scene was the dinner scene, and to be, aggressive and sort of nasty to someone who I adore as much as I
Yeah.
adore Como was not easy. So
Now, what I really appreciated about this film was, especially in today's political climate, where we're so polarized in almost everything. Um, was there some conversations around that, or what are some of the thematic conversations you were having with the director that you wanted to get across in telling this story?
I think, well, I think the whole concept of, um, the the value and importance of tradition in the Jewish faith was what I spent a lot of time talking to the director about, because I'm not Jewish,
Yeah.
and so that was and I'm not familiar with a lot with that religion, and so a lot of that, and I found that very helpful in working with the director on those concepts. And I did go to a small university called undergraduate university called the University of the South, which was a small liberal arts school that where tradition was very important. We had, um, professors wore gowns to class.
Wow.
Students, once they achieved a certain GPA, also wore gowns to class, coats and ties. So I was familiar with tradition and the importance of tradition to a lot of folks and a lot of, you know, groups. And so, but it was helpful for me to have those discussions, and we spent some time discussing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're wearing your tie today, so you've kept that tradition alive.
I'm wearing my tie because I just finished a deposition right before I jumped
Oh,
on. So
lucky you. From one thing to the next.
ties and
Jack of all
meetings,
trades.
which we can do in Zoom now. You don't
Yes,
have
the
to.
joys of that, the joys of
That's
this.
from the waist up.
Art, depositions, all on the same medium. I love that. So, when you first saw the film, what was your reaction?
Um, well, my, you know, I loved the soundtrack, the
Yeah,
music. I thought was really nice and really, I loved the cut, because obviously, and I know that you're an actress as well, or an actor as well, that a lot of what you do doesn't find its way into the film. And so it was, I was very, very pleased with what the editor and the director captured
yeah,
from what we did, because I think they captured the best of what we did.
Nice.
I thought that was really cool. And I loved there were two scenes that were sort of blended together toward the end. The scene between Solomon and his brother, and the scene between Solomon and his future daughter-in-law,
Yeah.
and how those were kind of blended in to tell the story.
Nice. Yeah, they always say an editor can really make or break a movie. So
Absolutely.
you're really
Yeah.
crafting a whole
What
other,
we do is the tip of the iceberg.
yeah. You show up,
Uh-huh.
you give everything you've got, and then you say goodbye and spend months,
Right.
years piecing it together. Yeah. What has been the reaction to the film?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I have not been in a theater and seen the film with an audience.
That'll be
Uh,
interesting.
Ar- Ari, the director, was saving that for when we can all get together when
Yeah.
the film shows in the Orlando area. And so I only recently saw it for the first time,
Oh,
right? Actually, 3 or 4 days before this interview. Um, but apparently, and I've been advised a few times from Ari about reception at festivals and stuff, and apparently it's getting some uh, positive feedback. So that's cool.
yeah, I can't see it not getting positive feedback, to be honest. After I watched it, I was like, yeah, that there was a very clear vision to it. And what I liked is it wasn't, there was a lot of nuance in the conversations that they're having as well. So kind
Yeah,
of ties into, yeah, feeling like I could empathize with both sides.
yeah.
And what's the director's perspective on this in terms of, is this based on his personal experience?
Um, I don't know. I think in part I do. I think it and I don't know that with certainty. I haven't talked to Ari, the director, about that
Yeah.
specifically, but I can just tell by his passion
Mm.
in directing the actors, during production, and in how he's told the story, that you know, I sense that it was,
Nice.
at least in part.
Yeah, it feels very personal. Uh,
Yeah.
so you're also telling me and that you've been involved with a film production company, right? Local cinema
Yes.
studios. I'd love to
Local.
hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah, Local Cinema Studios is a company that I started with my son and two other wonderful humans from the North Carolina area. And it's a nonprofit film production company that's designed to bridge the gap between academia and the film industry.
Mm.
By doing feature-length films and then hiring professionals to come in and guide um, folks that are just getting out of school or just in their last portion of their schooling to to write, produce, edit, and distribute feature films.
Wow.
And my son, who teaches acting for the camera at the University of South Carolina, um, has been successful in obtaining grants from the South Carolina Film Commission that has allowed us to do at least one feature film a year.
That's
And
incredible.
it's been a great experience. And it's just really amazing to watch folks and how devoted and passionate they get about a production during both in the pre-production and production and post-production stage. And it's just been a great experience. And it's a kinder, gentler way, I think, to do film production.
Yeah.
It's more like I played team sports growing up, and it's more like a team effort, and it's really, really fun.
Well, everyone can share their expertise. And just because people are up and coming artists or younger and don't quite have that experience doesn't mean they don't have something to share. And it takes so long to build that resume and get yourself on those big sets that sometimes that jump seems almost insurmountable. So it seems like kind of a dream to be able to have that middle ground to have the
Right.
backing and have the support to
Right.
create. Yeah, what better way to learn?
Right.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And what's next for you? Are there any upcoming projects you're excited about?
Well, I'm working on a play right now that's being produced in Orlando called I'm drawing a blank on it. The Birds of North America. It's a
Oh, I
it's a
have heard
play
of that.
about, yeah, it's a father-daughter relationship play that
Nice.
follows them. They're bird watchers, and they sit out on their back porch and watch birds at a particular time every year. And it takes them through about a 10-year period of their lives together. And so I'm working on that right now.
Good for you. Always creating. And you're just at a acting workshop in New York?
Yeah, I just went to a 6-week intensive program at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York, which
Cool.
is a great, they have a 2-year conservatory program, but they do a 6-week summer intensive program that gives you a lot of what they do during the 2-year term. But a lot of known named actors have been graduates of the Neighborhood Playhouse, including Robert Duvall and a number of other folks. It
Wow. To walk
was a
among
great
the
experience.
legends. I love that.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Now, for any listeners who have not previously watched your film, give us a little elevator pitch. Why should we watch it? On the
You,
spot.
yeah, you should watch it because it really is kind of a magical story.
Mhm.
And I love the story because it's a, it's a father-son story. And
Mhm.
so any father or any son should see it.
Yeah. Lovely. I like it. Perfect pitch. You're good at that. Well, I'd love to thank you so much for joining us today. And it was really lovely talking to you. And
Likewise.
looking
Thank
forward
you very
to
much.
hearing more about future projects. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you in another festival film soon.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a great one.
You too.